Welcome back to the Resonant State, the world's fourth greatest podcast. We are continuing with our deep dive into the entire hypnocracy, to use the words of Grateful Dead lyricist Robert Hunter, rule by hypnosis. Hypnosis, hypno, the god of dark dreams. Even the root of the word hypnosis relates to being in thrall, becoming under the command of another, of going into an alternate reality where you think what your actions are accomplishing, they're actually accomplishing something different. So again, I'm joined by the legendary William Ramsey, Sean McCann of Wake the Dead. This is our power team. I call it the A team. Okay, we're the A team. But anyways, we're gonna do brief recaps. So I'll just give my 3 cents on this. So in terms of this whole exposition, um, one of the things that I recognized was that a MK Ultra is late in the game. MK Ultra is the mass offering of this. And I was thinking about various things like the acid test. Who documented it? Well, it was documented by Thomas Wolfe in his book. He's there as the CIA documentary officer, and it's in the literature. So these things were documented and they're fed back into the public mind. And this creates a whole nother level of this stuff because it's all right there in front of you. It is not, if you read it clearly, it's right there. So basically, the we have is the hypnosis actually relates to creating a dream state. So it's creating a filter, a dreamlike filter of reality. So the consciousness, your actual consciousness, is never permitted actual direct freedom and agency. And all of your sensory inputs are intercepted or subverted. And most of the time, this programming is happening completely unconsciously. You have no awareness that you're under any kind of programming at all. And you go through a lot of the therapeutic tensions that have arisen. We can look at Freudianism, and I mentioned before last week, second order cybernetics. Cybernetics was the ultimate goal of the Macy conferences and cybernetics, which we are living in the tail end. We're living in the millenarian. We're living in the end of the world. We're living in the Kiamat. They call Kiamat means day of judgment, right? Of the cybernetic age, which means total control by AI, complete integration of man and machine. And you all know Harari said very clearly, the AI is the father of lies. The AI lies, right? This is the same protocol or paradigm. However, the collection of data, the harvesting of biometric movements and motions, even the integration of brain, voice to skull technology is earlier manifestation. You have, like the guy we talked about, Omega Man last week, but imagine having your brain interface. You got your Neuralink chip stuck into your brain. Oh, that seems great. Wow. Yeah, right. Doesn't seem great to me. However, the fact is, they almost don't need to do that. They're already invoking it because second order cybernetics means that the you are the self-governing system into which you will self-program. You will become your own slave driver. You are both master and slave, and yet all these things are part of the same control grid. So that being said, ultimately, um, it's someone asked a couple weeks ago, dehypnotizing. I have a lot of things I will offer on that in separate things, but to recognize that we live in a almost totally artificial environment. You go into any shop, the sounds, the lights, all these are hypnotic control cues. And the more subtle cues can often be the more powerful. So they don't have to be direct. You don't have to be walking around like, you're whatever, you're whatever you see, the hypnotic, you stab yourself with a sword or whatever. You can just see it all around you. And it is, most people they have completely lost their consciousness. And regrettably, all of us are in this. There are a lot of these layers of this we call hypnotic, which are basically, these are dream time sequences. So you never find your basic immediate conscious presence. And a lot of the therapeutic things, they just keep reinforcing this. You keep going and going and going, you're never going to find a ground. So we're removing this, because this whole thing ultimately rests upon us. We are the ones, right, that are listening. You find your space, and we can free ourselves from this, because it is anti-natural. It is illusory, it is evil, and it is a construction. So let's destroy that. That's my recap.
That's
Amen.
well said.
Great
That's
intro.
well said. Yeah,
great
that's
intro.
awesome.
Amazing.
I was just thinking, and this is like what Hans was just describing, is Plato's cave is not in the cave anymore. It's like all around us everywhere, and everybody's choosing to believe the illusion. And meanwhile, like some of us are in the sunlight saying, hey, this is real light out here, like look at beyond the illusion, break free, but this really, the whole idea of the narrative creating the reality for those in the cave, uh, it's how it's always been, it's how it is now. And Esther Brooks was able to find a specific narrative for each person that uh, pretty much anybody that speaks English can be hypnotized, because that was his language. But he would speak a narrative into their ear, specific, designed for their brain, and their brain accepts that and accepts, okay, yes, you're my master, yes, I'll do what you say, yes, I'm very sleepy, all the hypnosis, right? But that's another form of narrative. It's the words are the magic, and so really, like, the words, they create the illusion in our mind. And when everybody agrees with the illusion, then we are in a satanic space that's not, like he said, anti-natural. Like, and really, like, our minds create the reality together. And if we're all creating an illusion that is designed by our controllers, then we're going to create the cage, and we're going to be stuck here. you know we can create a reality instead of an illusion together, if we you know walk like Jesus and love our neighbors, right? If we recognize what's really important instead of money and those other illusions that we're always chasing, voting and heroes, and that if we take our responsibility in our own hands and we use our senses to make a more true narrative for our own life, we might be able to crawl out of this illusion and not be total slaves that are like on strings, like marionettes to the government, the evil that is, the dark occultists. So welcome, William.
Thanks
you.
for having me. Great to be back with both of you. Great intros. Really true. The real prison probably isn't the external. It's all internal. It's probably the greatest prison that humanity's involved in. That's why people can be in jail and be free, is because it's all kind of whatever constructs are in their brain. We are at episode 17. We've done such great work. A lot of praise and encomiums from the public. But I was just wanted to take a little time to kind of go back before we get lost in the trajectory of where we're going. We have a guest tonight, Robert Frederick. of The Hidden Life is Best. I've done a lot of shows with him. I know you've done shows, Sean. I don't know if Hans has, but sorry to keep him waiting. Sorry, Robert. But I just like to do a recap just to let people know. I mean, we've done like 30 hours of shows, but we started out looking at the Manchurian Candidate as a film, but also as kind of an insight into this mind control stuff, right? It came out, but it's so important. It was done in 62 by Condon. And a lot of that information kind of played out in this document we went through in Hoban Estabrooks. This Yen Lo character is quoting all this stuff. He's actually kind of telling the truth, but a lot of that stuff played out in all of these academic papers that Yen Lo was quoting, some of which were real. Like, I guess Brett told me some of them were real. He's literally quoting that stuff. So, and also these techniques and all these imagery and this dream state, like Hans mentioned at the intro, those are all reflected kind of in this Manchurian Candidate film, which really ties up even all the way to today, because Hans was talking about the Manchurian Candidate. Erica Kirk as a Manchurian Candidate woman, kind of like Eleanor Island, 5 years older than Charlie, comes on the scene, intel background, strange background, very political. And then it gets picked up by, this concept gets picked up by Candace Owens, who, I don't know if recently that's the case, but she at one point was the top podcaster in the world. So I think that these concepts kind of going out in the public are important. We went from Manchurian Candidate film to Condon's intro in Operation Mind Control. Two of the most important books are Search for the Manchurian Candidate. They're dated. Search for the Manchurian Candidate and Operation Mind Control. So Condon wrote the intro. So the concept of the Grockian clown. So this idea of like, you become, if you don't know these mind control techniques, you're subject to them. It's kind of like a clown. You mentioned marionette, Sean. But then, you know, these whole thing, Dave McGowan, we went to Program to Kill, Mind Control 101, who goes into and talks about the partitioning of the brain, amnesia, and how they can do it. And then we went right into the George Hoban Estabrooks. Shout out to what's the guy, Greenwald, over at the vault, I think it's Black Vault, for actually doing the FOI to get these really important documents. Like, everybody knows they're important now. But we read through that. It's like 500 pages. But so much was included in that, in his work. Estabrooks is really, to me now, a world historical figure that's really overlooked, because it's the road to MK Ultra, just like you mentioned at the intro, Hans. This is Estabrooks and Hoover, this interplay at the very beginning, before World War II. There's so much going on in that. It shows that Hoover and his whole squad, his whole group, were involved in this correspondence. They're checking the boxes. Some of the stuff is supposed to be destroyed. It wasn't. But they're checking the boxes, going back and forth. And all these themes are involved in there. What Estabrooks is talking about is reflected in Manchurian Candidate, the book and film, which is this idea of amnesia, where you can partition the brain, and also the guise and guile of involved. Like, he literally, Estabrooks used, I will be at the YMCA under the guise of a doctor, a helping doctor. Like, this is in those documents. It's showing things that played out later, with whether it's West or some of these other Klein that's around Chapman. And we haven't even gotten to that yet. Like, that was kind of like in my mind's eye, we were going to get to that. I don't mind where we're headed, but I'm just saying, like, that was kind of to show the 60s. Hoover's behind all these things. So he knows everything from the 30s. He's behind a lot of these. Like, people say that these high level kind of CIA doctors, by the way, I'm having Colin Ross on my show next Friday, so people can listen in. He literally wrote a book called The CIA Doctors. But these CIA doctors, but you had to think that Hoover also knew a lot of the stuff in the 60s that's never really disclosed, but it's disclosed in this document that we went through that I think was published in the Black Vault in 2018. A lot of that stuff's interesting, his books and all that stuff. Hans mentioned Spiritism. That's one of his early books. The interesting thing about Estabrooks is he's involved in ESP very early in the 20s or 30s. He's into mesmerism. I found one of his papers. I was up at Berkeley this weekend and downloaded a lot of his academic papers, and they're pretty remarkable. They're not really publicly available, but mesmerism, ESP, like, he's almost like anointed mind researcher even before anything that happened at SRI. I also got a copy of Man, the Mechanical Misfit. So it's this concept of Ferrari where we're just robots, operational, basically victims of our biology. Also, these things that popped up in this thing are really incredible in the document. Erickson, William Joseph Bryan Jr. These big names that aren't even talked about. You can kind of see how far along people are on the MK Ultra path because they overlook a lot of this stuff. They always just start at 53 with Dulis's brain warfare speech in Virginia, and then to the official 1 week later, the official start of MK Ultra with 149 known sub projects. Right, to assume that we know everything is a very faulty assumption. It's also a faulty assumption to assume they destroyed all the records too. That's what Helms tells you. If you believe these guys at the CIA, I've got beachfront property in Colorado, I'll send you, or whatever. I mean, you are a person who thinks that if I told you credulous isn't in the dictionary, you believe it. So you have to take everything with a ever-sized grain of salt when it comes out of the CIA. Like I said, guile, amnesia, these things. The other thing that's really important that's related by Esterbrook is he had a stable of subjects. And I think that's a very important thing for people to realize that, oh, I can bring these 3 people down and show them off to you, and like Hoover at least is in writing saying, no, we don't know what they said verbally. Like a mob, they don't like, people don't commit stuff to writing that often, at least back in the day, because they don't want to get busted. But that was a kind of a long show, but I think we really got through that long document and got a lot of information out of it. And then Hans, I think last week was the one we did with the Chat GPT Omega Man, which is really just crazy as hell. And it shows where we are with AI. So
that sent me down a rabbit hole, that one, the Omega Man thing and the Chat GPT psychosis or whatever. Like, for days, I was looking into the horror, the horror. I mean,
there's other stories about that. They just had somebody testify in Congress about how ChatGPT was making sure the rope they were using to hang themselves was enough to hang themselves.
That's the one. And the kid was like, it was a young kid, teenager, and he's like, he tells ChatGPT, he says, I think I should leave the rope out so that my parents can find it. And then the thing tells him, no, don't do that. They won't understand you like I do. And he doesn't. And then a week later, he's dead. And
yeah, these people should be sued out of existence. Of course they should. Come on. This is a harmful product. It goes back to product liability. Melvin Belli, all that stuff. That's how he made his money.
If it was a human, that it would go to jail for saying that and keeping them from.
Well, they should put the guys who put the program together. They're a causative factor. So, like the losers at the DOJ should literally prosecute these people for murder. In my opinion, I mean, this is like it's too much to ask for a dumb shit like Bondi, to ask her to actually think anew and kind of calculate these new things. She's a bonehead. That's why she's in there. I mean, we can go into these Epstein files. It's a government job. It's a total. They released all this. You can't even believe this. They said that no, there was no files in there. What they did is these files were duplicates, and they had other idiots at the DOJ black them out, so that if you take the 3 documents, the same document, they're 3 different variants of the blackout, and you can just see the whole thing.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
so that's a total government job. Or maybe the lower level people are like, okay, John, you do this, you black out this, and I'll black out that, and then the Republic will know everything, because it's either just massive incompetence or very skilled collusion between the lower level functionaries of the DOJ. So
trust the plan, man.
Anyway, they lied about everything. It's really horrible. Anyway, that's kind of I just wanted to do this recap. Robert Frederick, I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but that was kind of really important where we were and where we're going. I mean, we can probably do another 30 episodes.
William, I just wanted to touch on a few things though that we really hit upon that. It's some of the amazing information we come up with. One of the things which you didn't get to in that second document about the education of children, the juvenile delinquent stuff. And then we go to that document from the city of Washington to, to Cuba or whatever. Remember that? And they're talking about applying these techniques and technology to children. and this thing. So I shared a link, and this is something that I've that basically I've put a huge amount of stuff together that I have to formulate. But if you don't mind playing this YouTube clip I just put on the share. This is this is from the Children's Record Guild. These were given free to preschools all around America. And this song is called I'm a Little Puppet. And I think I may have played it on another show with you before, but just to listen to this with the understanding of what they had, and then going back to the 1890s, 1880s, 1890s, and you see this correlation, and then there's a lot of cover up, a smoke screen. For example, the lady talking about telepathic stuff, the FBI, the next memos, we talked about that last week. They're saying make sure there's no references to the FBI or there's none of his books in the local library. And because you know what I mean,
they don't want to remove books, burn them books. They just remove them. Large warehouses fill as quick as the cells. Rally around the family, pocket full of shells, right? It's like the song says.
Group telepathy in 1920s. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Deep into it.
Amazing, yeah.
They want to come. If it was just some crackpot lady writing a letter to the FBI, why is it in the documents? Why are they telling them to search all the libraries and look at the books if there's any reference to FBI in any of his books? And if there are, get rid of them.
It's just like the Rage Against the Machine sang. The other thing I missed too is the Seth things connected to Estabrooks.
Right.
The Seth transmissions are like one of the keystones of the New Age. Like they got spread out and dissembled. So he's involved with that. I forgot to mention William Saul Kroger and all the technology that's involved. We've seen the involvement of the lie detector test through Kroger with his weird strobe light type thing. And then also the FBI behavioral science unit. This is like a legendary thing with Resler and Douglas using hypnosis in their things, to bust Woody Harrelson's dad. And so that's around. So the document has all kinds of different facets that are really important and very relevant to us.
Those guys were the first profilers of the serial killers that Dave McGowan was talking about. And they can expertly cover up all the, pertinent information. And,
it goes back to Will said,
right. The dog told him to do it. Right. Oh, it was a dog. The neighbor's dog was barking. That's why he went and murdered. And
right. It's like Estabrooks's Guile. Like, what? Well, we didn't know he was programmed. These guys are, the things that I shared about, I think I shared about Lanning, Lanning does not, and the FBI guy who's like talking about, there's no satanic ritual abuse. And then what's the guy's name who was like involved in McMartin? He's like, Lanning is the biggest Satanist since Crowley and Aquino. It's like he's like on the side of this. I think did I read it into this one, or I must have done it for another show? Anyway.
Okay. Well,
no, but it was what's the guy's name who was the FBI head who was involved in McMartin?
Oh,
the chattel.
He was on the Oberman, or not Oberman. But he said, like, I heard on his show that you used to work with
Ed
Opperman. Yeah, he said that that gentleman spoke with Aquino every day on the phone.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions about that guy.
Right. Aquino was the program, was the handler, but I see in the chat, Robert Frederick has detailed the foundation of what these guys are marveling at, and that's true. And yes, Opperman report also in the chat. Thank you. But Robert Frederick is here. He actually contacted us, and because we're good friends. He's been on my show and he's been on your show, William, and he should be on Hans's show now that Hans has a show. So and because we mentioned the Seth documents, and that is pertinent to what Robert specifically was talking about. He's been doing a long deep dive on Midsummer Night's Dream, and it is incredible. Everybody should check it out at Hidden Life is Best. And could we welcome Robert on now?
Gentlemen,
we didn't play the clip, but that's hello, Robert. I didn't want to have.
Can you send the clip again, Hans? Can you put the link in? I don't see it.
Okay, it's on the.
Welcome, Robert.
Okay, let me do it.
Thanks for letting me insinuate myself into your process here, but I had to bring you the OG of entertainment, mind control and entertainment, with William Shakespeare. But the guy who really wrote William Shakespeare also helped start MI5, MI6, and those are the guys that invented MK Ultra. From the little bit of research I've done into MK Ultra, and basically, everything you've been talking about relates back to the Shakespeare plays or to my personal experience with regarding to Seth and hallucinogens and stuff. But the mind control in the Shakespeare has just completely blown my mind. It's like I have like 10 plays left to watch, but I'll watch a new play and it's all about mind control, like The Taming of the Shrew, where he completely sends Katerina's brains into mush such that she calls the sun the moon. That's the whole point of the play.
Wow.
And it's a comedy. And even women like it. And it's 2 + 2 = 5. It's so weird. It's just still shocking me. And to try to grasp it, I've done a line-by-line reading of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which literally illustrates narco-hypnosis and mind control and sexual trauma and lost time, and it's a humiliation ritual. It's like everything is in this play, and it's a comedy, and they do it for kids. My son did the play in 7th grade. Kids do the play 7th or 8th grade, and it's full of perverted sexuality too. It's like I kind of can't believe it. I still can't believe it. I've spent months on just this one play to try to grasp it. And so I just had to like pop my head in and say, let's at least confront Shakespeare. And there's 4 plays in particular. The first one that comes to mind, of course, is Macbeth, who's literally a Manchurian candidate, who's mind controlled by the witches, who the language around the witches is that they are intelligence. Back in the day, they were called intelligencers, and the witches are known to have intelligence. And they immediately mind control Macbeth. He's wrapped. That's the word that's used. He's wrapped. He's taken away. He's in another world. And and he's a great fighter. It's just like everything you guys have been talking about. They find someone who's already sort of predisposed in this direction. But literally, and Macbeth becomes a mind-controlled assassin who murders the king, foments a civil war. And who's the hero of the play? It's the English army who out of the goodness of their heart, invade Scotland to take over the country. So it's literally a blueprint of building an empire. It's incredible. And this just goes throughout the plays. And then to top it off, Francis Bacon, who wrote many of the plays and oversaw the project, it was an entire project, is a mind control project, but he helped start MI5 and MI6. And that's normie history right there. He was right there with Francis Walsingham and William Cecil. He invented a system of cryptography at the age of 16 and was involved in English intelligence his entire life and operated at the highest level of the Elizabethan and Stuart governments. So this whole MK Ultra thing, there's a direct line from these plays to MK Ultra. And Midsummer Night's Dream, I just already said, it literally illustrates MK Ultra. And when I first watched it, I couldn't believe it. So for this particular play, I've kind of made it my mission to study the historical criticism and scholarly response to this play to make sure I didn't miss anything, or literally at the beginning was just to find some corroboration for what I'm seeing. And it's been very hard to find, except finally the modern critics are noticing that the play is about homosexual pederasty and changing people's behavior. but only in a very mild way. So that's part of dealing with Shakespeare, is dealing with the 400 years of critical response to the plays. You know, there's 1 million books at least about Shakespeare, and there's 500,000 about the books about Shakespeare. Like,
But
and it's a religion. You know, he made a religion out of it. But anyway, that's what I wanted to bring to the table here today.
when you look at that critical response, you're looking at how people have perceived, and it took how many years for them to recognize that Oberon was a bad guy, you know,
Yeah.
because of this cloak of comedy of
Yeah.
like, oh, and then they accept it with the spoonful of sugar helps
Yeah.
the Satanism go down. You know?
Yeah. Bacon's understanding of the mind was extraordinarily advanced. The whole idea of Midsummer Night's Dream is that imagination creates reality, which Kant made a philosophical premise 150 years later, just after, you know, Bishop Berkeley and David Hume, who were British, about 100 years after this play. But it's embedded in the play, that idea that the dream is a part of reality and the dreaming mind is a part of reality, and that you can kind of control someone else's dream. It's embedded in this play. It's illustrated. And that's the other really crazy thing after years of doing this, is that I've come to the conclusion that amongst all the other things these plays are, they're also teaching tools for the brothers, because there's signals in the plays for the secret society, mostly using the language of alchemy, but the earliest symbolism of Freemasonry is in this play, or is in these plays. So the brothers immediately pick up like, oh, this is a Masonic play. And then of course they're bound by oath to promote the play. And thus Shakespeare becomes the phenomenon, the global phenomenon that it is. And it's literally a religion. It's just incredible on every level. So every day my mind is blown when I look at this stuff, and I'm trying to coalesce it into a book, and I'm doing a series of podcasts as I get new information. And yeah, like Sean said, I'm really buried into Midsummer Night's Dream, which is an astonishingly brilliant play, because literally in front of everyone's face, Oberon sexually traumatizes his own wife so that she has sex with an animal. Why does he do it? Because she is in charge of a little boy that Oberon wants. Give me the boy. She refuses. What does he do? He drugs her, and she has sex with an animal, and she gives him the boy. I mean, how crazy is that? That's the center of this play. And you won't hear anyone.
Excuse me, can I interrupt you for a second? So
oh, please do. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I go on
good.
for
It's
days,
okay.
man.
I'm
It's okay.
sorry.
No, just this is Hans wanting me.
So this is
You guys can hear that audio, correct?
yes. This is
Say,
played for children.
How would
right?
you look if I turned you into a puppet? First I tie the strings for your head, then the strings for your hands and legs, then abracadabraca, hippily-poo, of gum, you're all wooden. Here's a puppet boy, he's all wood from head to toe, and here's a puppet girl, she's as wooden as the boy. Here's a puppet boy, he's all wood from head to toe, and here's a puppet girl, she's as wooden as the boy. Now I'm going to pull all the strings and make you move. Little puppet, walk with your legs and arms so stiff. Oh, little puppet, walk like a funny wooden doll. Little puppet, walk with your legs and arms so stiff. Oh, little puppet, walk like a funny wooden doll. Turn your head, first to one side, then the other. Turn your head, like a funny wooden doll. Turn your head.
The timing is all weird and the
Do
noise.
you want me to play the whole thing, Hans?
Yeah, just let me say briefly again, this was played to millions of children for the nap times all across America. Children's Record Guild, which was actually a communist funded organization. We could do a musicological analysis. These are for little kids, very research types of frequency. Notice as it goes on, and this will be played every day. Every day you're going sleepy time, and listen to now how it gets disjointed. If you're aware of music, listen to the dissonance. So it modulated up a key.
Yeah, the timing changes, right?
Yeah, timing changes, but just finish it out. And just to say that this is not just, I'm not pulling it out of my, my cosmic rectum. This is here you are, here you are.
This is for creative children whose parents want them to love, understand, and grow with goodness. Abracadabra, abracadabra.
Yeah,
Head first to one side, then the other. Turn your head like a funny wooden doll.
More
Lift
modulation.
your arms up high, lift them up and down, you drop them. Lift your arms up high like a funny wooden doll. Lift your arms up high, lift them up and down, you drop them. Lift your arms up high like a funny wooden doll. Drop them. Touch your toes. Keep your arms and legs so wooden. Touch
guys
your
right
toes. Can you touch them with your nose? Lower.
You want more, Hans? Keep going. You're muted. You're muted. You're muted, bro. All right, let's go.
So yeah, it keeps going. We don't have to hear all of it. It's, if you look at it in terms of a musicological analysis, it's quite complex piece of music. Okay, lots of key modulations, lots of dissonance. You have that whistle. This creates a neurophysiological reaction, like zoom. So there's stimulus response. It is extremely deep programming, and in terms of, if you understand classical music or whatever, the key modulations, and it goes on and on. We only went through, what, even like a third of it. It keeps going. It gets more and more intense as it goes on. Just, I don't even want to listen to it because it's
Thank you.
wooden puppet. But this is, and look at the picture. Okay, album picture. You see the body is bifurcated, left, right legs, right? Two separate people, two legs, almost like a womb, split brain, left, right brain split. And this is listened to all across America for all the preschools, and it's free. Old Children's Record Guild, play it at nap time. I'm a 20-year-old, BA graduate. I don't have a degree, and here's the kids. Oh, I'm supposed to put the record on. Listen to the record, kids. You know what I mean? And think of what. So this shows, and this is from what, mid 50s or whatever. And there's tons of these records. So this is not just a minor thing, but here at least we can analyze it in a narrow space, right? And so as Robert, who I haven't met, but he's talking about this. This idea we see is this, that your consciousness creates reality. Well, the loss of objective reality, you could say the Kantian perspective, idealism, and you see this going into cybernetic system theory. But what happens? If you go into this space, you become the Omega Man we talked about last week, right? So, you know what I mean? But at the same time, and I'll just say this last thing, I think what we have an inversionary principle, we have the alpha state and the beta state, technically brainwave. So your outward directed conscious awakened awareness is inward directed, which creates intense stress, continual trauma, continual anxiety. Your alpha state, your dream state is projected outwards. So you're living in a dream that is programmed through all these various types of media inputs. Human organisms, the human mind is immensely complex, right? Our brains are the most advanced thing on the planet. So it takes a lot to exert complete and total control. And then last thing I'll say is, as Robert mentioned, is there's so much encoding for various levels of this initiatory hierarchy that has been around for many thousands of years, not brand new. Now, whether the new initiates are the same level, but there's many initiates on various levels of knowledge, but there's various encodings that are there. So someone who's an initiate will see this album cover and they'll recognize we have the split, you have that, the bow tie. I mean, look at that. I mean, imagine this being programmed into you. And again, that whistle, that whoop, that's creating a frisson. It's creating a rupture state. So basically what this is programming is a continual state of perpetual illness, a magnification, neurosis, psychic fracturing, even psychic fracturing. You could be totally normal on the surface. Your mind, you never have your own consciousness. Leave it there.
All right. Let's get back. How about get
That's
back
great.
to Midsummer Night's Dream, maybe?
Yeah. 1 second. With the Midsummer Night's Dream, there were children singing in the opening segments, right? To lull the audience to sleep, right? There was these musical segments.
The film starts with a relaxation technique of water. A lot of films start with water, soft music. But the principles of that song are, absolutely in Shakespeare. There's songs in a lot of the Shakespeare plays. And Francis Bacon said, the theater is to the mind as the bow is to the fiddle. And it is well known that people are more affected in groups than alone. And it's actually easier to mind control people in groups rather than alone. And the music is just an adjunct to the language, because the power is in the language. In the beginning was the word, and we make up our world through language. And this is what Bacon knew and was a master of. It's rumored he read every single book in England by the time he was 20. He was extraordinarily precocious, like a Mozart of language, Mozart of words. And there's a very sophisticated use of language in the plays, and all the techniques you just mentioned, Hans, are in the play, mostly with language. But of course, no, there's characters and they have costumes on. There's constant use of music. And a lot of this goes back to ancient Greece and this intense study of the theater of ancient Greece, but then turned in on itself for specific techniques that's a great example. That crazy song is in a way what the plays were also designed to do. And they did. They worked. They were used as propaganda, and they turned people into puppets. And it was so successful, England became an empire. It wasn't an empire before these plays. And it's really just, it's incredible. But that is the power of theater. And that's the power of language. And it's disarming because you're laughing too. Yeah, he veiled all of this stuff, and we're all susceptible to it, as Estabrook said. If you speak English, I can mind control you.
Right.
Because
English is the key, right? Well, yeah.
Well, English or language. It's just language, any language.
I'm just meaning that rule Britannia, that the idea of English empire of the world, that was the New World Order, right? Back then. And
they foresaw it. Yeah, they foresaw the New World
Right.
Order. Absolutely. That's what they wanted. They talked about it amongst themselves.
Exactly.
And he knew he had
Sorry
to
about that.
control minds. He had to create the inner world that could create the outer world. He wanted an empire. This is all in Bacon's writings. People have been studying Bacon for centuries. He was a huge star in the 18th century and 19th century. His star has kind of fallen, but He also wrote New Atlantis, as you mentioned, Hans. And the Shakespeare is definitely tied to New Atlantis, which is the creation of scientism. And, you know, right now we've got this Yuval Noah Harari is a direct outgrowth from New Atlantis. And that's Peter Thiel's favorite book, where scientists are literally carried around as kings and science is king. And Bacon saw that too. That's normie history, where he was a cheerleader for science. He wasn't a good scientist. He didn't discover anything, but he understood what science meant and how far he had to go to get to the New Atlantis, where people believed in science, which in my opinion is why they faked the moon landing, because that was the final icing on the cake. We can put a man on the moon. We can do everything. And of course, ultimately, it's about elevating man over the creator. It's Gnostic. And he just went right to the building blocks, right to the ground level, the epistemology of belief. And how can I make puppet boys out of an entire nation that's not only going to create an empire, but ultimately it's an empire of science. And it's working. And I could trace the whole thing. That's what I've been spending years doing. And I think he foresaw it all. He was a freak. He was a precocious genius as a boy.
So replacing God with science,
yes,
literally puts man above God.
Yes.
Because you have to have atheism as the core. Like all the scientists have to believe that.
Yes.
And then they think that they can change reality with their methods of alchemy, you know.
Yeah.
But that's interesting how that now we are in the highest of the high is like, if you go with the Catholic Church or whatever, as far as the Catholics are concerned, the highest of the high for them was the Pope, and he says it's okay to inject yourself with aborted fetal tissue and like whatever. It's so the moral authority of that just says acquiesce to the doctors. They know better than me. Right?
Well, there's almost no love in Shakespeare.
Okay.
There's almost no referring to the creator. There's no let's pray, we will. I mean, it's there because the leaders of England had to pretend to be Christian. And there are references occasionally, but the characters never turned for any real spiritual succor anywhere. There's nothing to lean on. You're left with a profound uncertainty with Shakespeare. Hamlet's confused. He never prays. He never goes to see a priest. Macbeth never goes to see a priest. The real Macbeth was a very religious man who went to Rome and gave alms to the poor. It was loosely based on history. Who does he go see, Macbeth? He goes to see a doctor. It's so weird. And people don't really notice this. There were some restrictions I've since learned that you couldn't talk about religion, because there was so much tension between Catholics and Protestants. But you could talk about God. You could talk about Jesus. It's not in the plays. It's this sense of profound uncertainty. But what is in there is nationalism, patriotism, monarchy, authority. Shakespeare somehow has this reputation as a humanist and a lover of all mankind, but he hated all mankind. All the commoners are like dirt, and the people to be respected are the monarchs and the nobles.
The commoners are Caliban, right?
Yeah, Caliban, the commoner who doesn't get initiated. He's left out of the initiation. Three people don't get initiated.
He's all hairy
on the
drunk.
island where,
right?
What's his name? Huxley took the name of his book, Brave New World, and I think his second book is named for the Tempest too. And Kubrick's first movie, by the way, has heavy Tempest overtones. If you've ever seen Fear and Desire, there's a heavy Tempest underlay to the kid that goes crazy and kills that girl. He starts talking about the magician Prospero.
Huh. Yeah.
And which is the ultimate mind control play of all, is Prospero, who's known as a magician, and he completely mind controls the entire island and has such incredible powers because he has an invisible spirit named Ariel who can create a storm and bring people to the island, and he can just completely reprogram them. And Prospero, early in the play, does the handshake induction on his daughter Miranda. He grabs her and says, "Sleep." And she falls down like a sack of potatoes. Just like the YouTube videos of the Ericksonian handshake technique. Sleep. And they literally say it in the play. Listen to this quote from Sebastian in The Tempest. "I do, and surely it is a sleepy language that thou speakest out of thy sleep. What is it that thou didst say? This is a strange repose, to be asleep with eyes wide open, standing, speaking, moving, and yet so fast asleep." It's unbelievable.
Wow.
It's all right there. In Midsummer Night's Dream, it just illustrates it over and over. He'll change someone. Like there's 4 young lovers in the Midsummer Night's Dream. 2 of them run away to get married. They've pledged themselves to each other for life. And this is one way how Bacon constantly mocks romantic love. They've run away to the woods to leave Athens to get married because her father won't let her marry this young man. And 2 other follow them. But what Oberon does, supposedly by accident, but in the space of one hypnotic session, narco-hypnosis, these young men have completely reversed their affections that they had dedicated their life to, have gone 180 degrees in a different direction, and they're totally dedicated and in love with someone else. So simple. And then ultimately the whole thing is done for state power to keep the nobles calm, because it's not good that there's this confusion amongst the aristocracy. So Oberon in a way is performing empire at home function by keeping, the nobility cool and ready to take over as the next batch of leaders. And also, it's just everything relates. There's a group of working men that center the play in London because it's supposed to take place in ancient Athens during kind of a mythic time. But there are these 6 Londoners who are practicing a play. So there's a play within a play. And the only name given in the play for these 6 working men, playwright actors, is rude mechanicals. They literally...
That's what Yuval Harari thinks all of us are.
Yeah, it's right there. There it is. And they get mocked mercilessly because they're working men. They're weavers and tinsmiths and bellows menders, and they're really made to look extraordinarily stupid. But one of them gets initiated. One of them gets an ass head put on his head. His name is Bottom. Gets turned into an ass. Haha, funny. And he gets to have sex with Titania, who's the wife of Oberon. And it's an initiation. It's too complicated to go into now, but it's going to be my next episode is going to be showing how that was an initiation, and it goes back to the golden ass of Apuleius, who finally is no longer an ass because he gets initiated into the cult of Isis, the secret mystery religion of Isis. But yeah, Bottom gets initiated and shit. What was I going to say? Oh, God, I lost my train of thought. There's rude mechanicals put on the play. Anyway, yeah, they get mocked.
The play within the play.
The play within a play is all about reality. Like, what's real? Is the play real? I mean, the play does become real for us for an hour. A dream becomes real for us. Like, when we have a really intense dream, it's real, man. And you feel it is real. And you're shook up or changed, maybe for days or weeks, a really powerful dream. But the point is, that dream logic where you're in a room and it's your old house, but it doesn't look anything like your old house, but it is your old house because you feel like it is and you're experiencing like it is. And that kind of deep understanding of how dream logic does transfer over to daily logic, because that's the way our mind works. And yeah, we're all an independent person, but you have a different feeling for everyone. Like that woman is your mother, so you're going to feel very different about that woman, who's the same woman, than someone random stranger on the street. Or your father's going to feel about that woman, or everyone's going to have a different woman, especially for an individual. But it's the same for a chair. Here's a chair, you can measure it, you can weigh it, you can paint it, you can describe it, but that's going to be a different chair for everyone. They may not like the chair. It might be too small for them, might be too big for them. They might think it's ugly. It's a different chair for everyone. And you could just, even scientists now are arguing like Catholics and Protestants from the 16th century. They're not certain what it is. Oh, scientists, that's all empty space, man. There's protons and electrons. That's all that is. Or, and the scientists are all screaming about plasma or dark matter or string theory or Copenhagen interpretation. They don't know what it is either. We really are living in a world that we create, and we have to know that. And I think what Bacon did is split it up so that he I don't know, this gets confusing, but he kind of wants us in a material world so that he can more easily lead us by the nose and make us puppet boys. When in fact, we really have to guard our imaginations and our thinking, because we do create our reality in our thoughts and moods, even if there is another reality out there, which Kant said, it's just that we can't fully know it because of our need to put it into a phenomenal state, into a world of time and space, and our feelings and our memories. So we need to be trained in a new way, like you're saying, Hans, that we're not so influenced, that we influence ourselves, or we're influenced by very positive things. And I think we are getting there. I think humanity's really being tested by all this media, because we are so easily influenced. But if we can just know that we have to be on guard at all times about what's influencing us, that we can create a positive world. And that's pretty common knowledge these days, I think. But it's so easy to fall back into a strictly partisan emotional response to the world, which they create, which I see on social media. And, they did it so brilliantly in the last election where, this trans thing, this open borders here, man, you're like, fuck the Democrats, I'm voting Republican. You're like, I've been totally manipulated. But they're brilliant at it. They're really brilliant at it. But I do think we can pass this test through more awareness and stuff like what you guys are doing. And hopefully what I'm doing, we're pointing out, like right there in Shakespeare, there's a subterranean message. There's a hidden agenda, which is brilliant, Hans. That's the puppet boy. I mean, how obvious are they going to make it? I mean, wouldn't a parent go like, that's wacky? I'm not playing that record for my kid, but they probably didn't.
When they create the narrative, or when they induce us into the shared narrative, they're in a sense taking on the role of the demiurge.
Correct.
Like they're leading us out of the real reality into this little cage of
that's
the
ultimate.
Tesseract.
That's the ultimate irony, is that these Gnostics think we're living in a prison, but they're the ones creating the prison. They're the ones creating the panopticon, because they want total control so they can go to war with God. It's so ironic.
I would, I think it's a fundamental point. I would necessarily disagree with you, but, and maybe because I'm sort of a semi-Heideggerian, maybe my Germanic heritage, right? But there is, he talks about the thrownness and the resolute openness. There is an objective reality. Now, we create our own reality. Yes,
Right.
but there is an objective reality. Now,
Right.
do we know what that is? Most of us probably have no idea because we are so completely conditioned. So the objectivity to train the mind to go towards that requires the awakening of consciousness, which means that you must become an active agent in this space and in the manifestation
Right.
space, right? And so
Right.
the shared collective thing. But and then I just wanted just to, because I mentioned that the New Atlantis. So in the New Atlantis, Francis Bacon, he's talking about genetic engineering. He's talking about advanced scientific things. I just want to read there's basically this island utopia,
Another
which seems.
island.
Yep, which seems really nice on the surface, but I'll just read a couple quotes from this. Quote, we represent also all multiplications of light, which we carry to great distance and make so sharp as to discern small points and lines. Also, all colorations of light, all delusions and deceits of the sight in figures,
Mm,
magnitudes, motions, colors, all demonstrations of shadows. We also find divers means, yet unknown to you, of producing light from originally from diverse bodies.
incredible.
And it's so literally creating an entire phantasmagoric visual spectrum
Mm,
from this pillar of light. And then there's another quote, and surely you will easily believe that we that have so many things truly natural which induce admiration could in a world of particulars deceive these senses if we would disguise those things and labor to make them miraculous. And then it
yeah.
goes
It's incredible.
and on and on. And it says, and we have consultations. Which of the inventions and experiences which we have discovered shall be published? So we have consultations. So they're revealing some things in science and which not.
Yep.
And take an oath of secrecy and concealing of those which we think are fit to secret,
Yep.
though some of those we do reveal sometimes to the state
It's
and
unbelievable.
sometimes not. And they talk about even going to this naked bath where they see if anybody has a deformity for the children and to become genetically modified. And this is, I mean,
Dude, this
it's
is the
far
guy that
out.
wrote Shakespeare.
Yeah, I
I
know.
kid
That's
you
why I brought it
not.
up.
I kid you not. The evidence is there for hundreds of years, thousands of people, thousands of books about it. This is the same guy that wrote Shakespeare. He was a prophet. I think he could do remote viewing or that. I think he had techniques. He was taking drugs, doing deep meditation and extending his ideas about physical reality and what science could do. He saw it. He saw what if we focus on alchemy in a new way of manipulating matter, what could we eventually do with it? And it sounds like he's describing, cell phones almost or movies, and it's incredible. Yeah, and all that stuff is in there about controlling science, controlling people with their magic. This is a new kind of magic. Science is the new magic. And he took alchemy and made it into science, but it's really still alchemy, which is magic and which is meant to elevate humanity above God. That's literally what they thought. It's insane. They're insane, which is why we're in the state that we're in, because these people took power. They became the English Empire. They conquered the world. The whole world speaks English. Hello. English music, English sports, English finance, English law, English movies, English theater. Just everything conquered the world. It's mind-boggling. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
everybody wears a tie.
Yeah.
Like a
English
suit.
fashion. Good one. English
Yeah,
fashions. Yeah.
right.
It's wild. And it all came out of this guy's brain, but he wasn't alone. There were a whole bunch of geniuses there in Elizabethan London. One of them being John Dee. Everybody knows John Dee. And other guys, they were like, we could take over the world. And they started plotting it, making maps. They're really big on maps, which is why we can now take a look at our own house on Google Maps. It's like document everything,
But
label everything.
You mentioned earlier how MI6, MI5 created OSS, and OSS created CIA.
Yep.
And so these guys are loyal to the roundtable groups of the Rhodes Scholars. They're not like an American institution. They are basically working for Rule Britannia, right?
I think so. Yeah, I think we're just the military wing. And the financial wing.
And so all the stuff that Estabrook was doing was working for them.
Yeah.
Even though he was working for Hoover, Hoover is working for the higher ups, the unelected, the black nobility of government or whatever,
I
mean, everybody
He's put
used
in
to
there to represent them. That's what Hoover's doing. That's why he started out young.
Yeah.
His dad was the highest level Mason. You can see his dad and Mason regalia, like 32nd, 33rd degree Masonry. So,
and they all used to go to England. They always just spend months or years in England.
It's funny that the guy that they use to represent them wears women's clothing, and like it's the exact inversion of reality.
Who's
like,
this?
He's Hoover. Like Hoover would wear women's clothing at the parties and stuff.
Yeah, he was a Mason too. Well, it turns out androgyny is a huge part of Gnosticism and alchemy. It's like a key concept of alchemy. And they're all idea that everything's one. And they'd love it. And that's why we're getting this agenda.
They would dress up the men as women in the plays.
Yeah. And the boys were the women. Yeah.
And they would steal little boys off the street.
Yep. And they would abuse them. There was pedophilia. I mean, it started really early in England, this whole idea of abusing the little boys.
Elizabeth made it legal, right?
Elizabeth made it legal to steal boys so they could put them up on the stage. And a very perverse thing to have these boys dressed as women speaking very provocatively sexual lines, because Shakespeare's drenched in sex, which most people don't know because it's slang. It's drenched in alchemy, which most people don't know because it's an occulted language. And they're having these boys speak very sexually charged lines. And of course, Eros is the main control mechanism, which of course is completely unleashed in our society now through pop music and entertainment. It's just everything's erotic. But in Spain, which had a really advanced theater scene too, in Catholic Spain, women could be actresses. It was a really weird thing. And one of the reasons the Puritans shut down the theater during the Revolution, I forget what they call that, was because the pedophilia around the theaters was kind of an open secret.
As it is today.
Yeah, right. It's the same today. Exactly. Hollywood's the same thing. The movies are propaganda. The movies, on one hand, meant to create a nationalist sense, but also meant to kind of like degrade you and keep you dependent. It's all an extension of that era, the Elizabethan era, and it's true about what you said about the Globe Theater. I went there last year. I spent a couple of weeks in London, and I went to the Globe, of course. They rebuilt.
We said that before air.
Yeah.
Could you
Today.
repeat what was being said?
Oh, you guys talked about the nature. Oh, you didn't hear it?
Well, no, the audience didn't hear. That was before we hit the live button. You were in the waiting room. And William, you mentioned the Globe Theater. Could you say that again for the audience?
Well, William, our very first interview, William, way back when, you said the Globe Theater, like the symbolism's right there. The world, it's going to spread around the world. William picked up on that right away. But yeah, it's in the round. So you're participating in the play with the audience. Like you're bonding with the audience while you're watching the play. It's really, really brilliant. Whoever came
it's SRO, standing room only. So you're literally
on the floor,
up there, just
and
putting
you had
right up
seats
against
too.
there.
Yeah, you're right up there. The audience kind of becomes part of the play. a lot of the Shakespeare, they turn and talk to the audience. I know they call that, the technical term, breaking the fourth wall or something, but they pull the audience into the action. And the language is so powerful. It's literally hypnotic language. A lot of it's using the confusion technique, which I'm sure you guys have talked about, which is a key part of Ericksonian hypnosis. It's literally a scientifically studied technique of hypnosis. The plays are very confusing. I still can't watch them without the dialogue next to me, and half the time having to read the synopsis on Wikipedia, and like, part of it's the old language. I was at the Globe. I had seen the play before. I still couldn't follow it, probably because of the accent. But it kind of makes you study the play, which on one hand makes you smarter because you're kind of being a detective and looking for clues. But on the other hand, it just pulls you deeper into, the agenda that they're pushing on you, which is, Shakespeare's the most androgynous of all the playwrights. There's 7 plays that androgyny is a key central concept. A guy's walking around in a dress the whole time, or a woman's pretending to be a man the whole time. It's a core principle, androgyny. So all this stuff comes back.
It's a core principle to that Gnosticism too.
Gnosticism and alchemy. And that's kind of repeating myself, because alchemy came out of Gnosticism, because they're looking for power. They're trying to live forever, never age, never get disease, and conquer the prison that they believe they're in. They literally believe the world is a prison. And it's what Kabbalah ultimately is. Kabbalah doesn't have to be Gnostic, but ultimately it is. It's based on Gnostic principles that God has withdrawn so far away, that there is a God. That's the ultimate reality, right? That we can't know. So we have to build it up here. But there's a God, but there's no God. He's so remote that a demiurge took over and somehow got our souls trapped in these bodies.
And it takes our effort to get out, right? It takes out man's
it takes
will,
gnosis,
mind.
it takes knowledge, which used to be you weren't going to be reincarnated here. But Bacon changed it to we're gonna never die. Huh. We're gonna just take over this planet. It used to be you get your gnosis, you get these secret passwords, and you fly right past the 7 archons that are guarding the planet and are gonna trap your soul and throw you back here. I mean, it's all so crazy, from their creation myth to their death myths. It's all crazy, but it's extremely seductive, because you feel like you're in on something special, and you're like the rebels in the woods, and you're building a new city and a new life, and you're gonna take over and live forever.
Hans has been outlining this Klepoth working magic, where it is the Kabbalism, but it's putting a new reality onto the people, where I guess Hans could better explain it, but it's a way of breaking us down into the shells to give them power over, like, Hans, could you please? You haven't said anything in a while.
Okay, I haven't. Kilify. Yeah, so that's the tree of death, basically, which is the inversionary principle of the tree of life. And again, these are, just as a forethought, these are ancient. To a certain degree, you can see that there are remnants of very powerful technologies, right?
Yes.
That are coming into play here and there. Was Francis Bacon acting alone? Was he an initiate? There's hierarchies of initiation, and various layers. And it's one thing I talked about, I think, on the phone with you, Sean, is like, whatever level you think you're doing, for example, people that are doing these type of workings, magic workings, you most likely a pawn. even the head of that order could be directed. Now, the head of the order is directing 100,000 people, but there's, et cetera. But anyway, so the kilophot it's something that when I chanced upon it, I was looking for a modeling of, you could say, cross causality over, long arrays of time with different events, how they interlocked. And then you find the kilophot, it's the reverse of the tree of life. But at the same time, it's literally evoking types of, you could, it is personified going back to ancient ritual cults, Phoenician, etc., reworking these energies, creating cross correlations and creating actual events in the world. And Sean, we've traced it where even things we talked about, you see it actually happen. You see the film, you see this, that, you see these things, and it comes and you see these things actually manifesting. And then you tie that in even with the mass shooting and this other things, even the potentially the chat GPT psychosis, is that you try to look up certain topics, man, you're not going to get anything on chat GPT. You want to kill yourself? Oh, here you go. Here you go. I've already analyzed your personality. I want to ask about the the Holocaust. They'll just, you're gonna, you ask about COVID. Oh, you're gonna get this. You ask about this thing. You're gonna get this. Very direct. It's not gonna deviate. But you want to kill yourself? Here you go, man. Here's the gun. I just sent it to you in the mail. So, and you have people in Silicon Valley trying to invoke demonic entities into the chat GPT, whatever that is. So these technologies, you can see them in various iterations. But so the kilophot, the whole principle is actually not that, it's not, they don't think the world is a prison. There is whatever segment or sector, whatever you want to call it. And whoever we see on the surface, we call elites. These are probably 3 or 4 or 5 stages down or more, right? But the idea is in these Kabbalah is the Adam Kadam, right? The God, man as God, the arisen God. And we are fuel, our suffering, our torture, we are sacrifices for the rituals. We will be trodden down and they will arise and live in eternity in this artificial, permanent slave state. And only those who are allowed to remain alive will either be functionaries or just slaves or just eliminated. And this has, and you can see the same iterations. Okay. It's not like this is new, but I think we're at this particular, we're reaching an apex where you're going back to Shakespeare and Francis Bacon. This is already envisioned, right? They're the new Atlantis. They want to make the new Atlantis into the planet Earth. Right. He's even talking about similar technologies.
Where does this stuff come from, Hans? The clip off. Is that ancient?
Yeah.
That's newer, newer secret
not
society
newer.
stuff.
No, it is ancient. It's very ancient. I mean, this actually, it's a compilation all the way, back to whatever beginnings of human history, at least in terms of any kind of cultic practices and this and that. So the Kabbalah is a very.
I don't know. Don't you think this idea of man being greater than God is relatively new? It's not. It's ancient in terms of birth, probably around the time of Christ.
No, way before that. I'd say about 12,000 years.
Because that is a very Gnostic sentiment, and I haven't detected that in ancient religions. I haven't detected the Gnostic sentiment, and I think that's really the only new religious idea. It's crazy, but I haven't heard about this Qliphoth stuff. I should look into that. But I think the Gnostic thing is new, and it's new with the alchemy and this idea that God is evil. Like even those crazy old religions where they're sacrificing children, they thought they were doing it to a benevolent God. They thought, we want more life. We're going to give you this life so we can have more life because we love life. The Gnostics are like, we fucking hate it here. Like we gotta get out of this place.
Like the Phoenicians were paying to kill babies. I mean the Carthage and I don't know if they love life too much.
Well, I think they did. It was like if they're gonna like give you the best thing they have.
Well,
they can
but
get more
really,
life, to make it
but
rain.
it becomes a system just like money, where like, okay, these are the rules of the system. We're living this way. This is the structure of our society. Okay, I need to buy a baby on Saturday because I've got this thing going on and I got to do. It's just part of their reality, and it's not like they're. It's weird. It's like the way that we understand money. It's like, oh well, I gotta get a new car. I gotta get these paper dollars. It's just how the function of their
Right,
society.
but it's still to like make life better. It's crazy. It's
I guess.
misguided. It's
Well,
primitive, but
in
it's
my
not
in
like
my opinion,
I
it's
gotta beat God. I'm better than God. That
well,
I think is a new human idea
but think
that
about it
came up
this way.
around 2,000 years ago.
Think about sacrifice of children.
Right.
So if they can convince a mother to go against God and give up her baby
No,
to the
she's not
priest
going
who's a
against
man,
God. She's not going against God.
well, it's her
She's
natural instinct to protect her baby.
right.
Is her
Right.
God?
She's been mind controlled to do
That's
it.
the right, but so that's proof. It's showing that the priest is above the law of God. The priest says, "Give me your baby. I'm going to kill it."
That's your idea of God. Their idea of God is that the God wants a baby. I'm going to give the God a baby. It's
Well,
crazy. It's not
their
right.
idea of God is that the priest is God, and God says, "Give me a baby." You know what I'm
No, the
saying?
priest is the priest in between the human and God, but they're trying
But
to
the
please God to get more life instead
but
of
the
destroy life. The
Um,
Gnostics
the priest
literally
gives
tried to
them the
destroy
story.
life.
one
The
The
priest
Gnostics
gives them the
said, don't
narrative.
have sex, don't have babies. That's wrong. And they had ceremonies of abortion, and they would drink the aborted stuff with everything. It's like
They would
it's
do
an
that.
inversion. It's
That's
like
how they would
the
kill the
Gnostics
babies
were
and drink the
inverting
babies back
life,
then.
but these old people, these old religions, just had a screwy idea of increasing life. It was wrong. I'm not supporting it. I'm just
I
saying it's different. In my studies that I've come
sure.
through the last few years, that something really did happen with the Gnostics, where
um,
they were trying to destroy life, like literally.
I think, Robert, I think the Gnostics, so they articulated this into a conscious philosophical position. But you
Absolutely.
look at some of these ancient gods, these gods are like, Cthulhu monsters. They're demonic and terrible. So, reality by itself, God will destroy you. You're going to sacrifice so you don't have
Right.
pestilence or fear. So, it's
Right.
not out of increasing life, it's out of fear and
Right.
protection. And
It's
it's a
still
pure,
fear.
you're living in an evil world. So, in
Right,
this
but
sense,
that's normal, right? Because you see
it is
animals
normal.
getting
Yeah, I guess in
eaten, you
that way it's
see
normal.
hurricanes, you see bad things happen. You want to live. You want to live. So what do we have to do to
Right.
live? And they screwed up. They said, well, we'll give you some babies and let us live. It's screwy. And yeah, God, the Old
Well,
Testament God is brutal.
think
I
of it
mean,
this way.
the world is a harsh place. I think it's love. I think it's built on love, but there's
Well,
hurricanes.
so okay, so like modern psychopaths, they kill and eat babies in front of others,
Right.
and it traumatizes the others,
Right.
and it creates a mind control state.
Right.
So who's to say they weren't doing it for that
For their
back
own
then?
personal power.
No. Back then, they
Right.
were
Back
doing
then.
the child sacrifice
To
for
increase their
mind control.
Oh, agreed.
So,
Absolutely.
because it traumatizes the
Yes.
society, it creates more compliance and
Yes.
dissociative agreeing with evil.
100% agree. Yes.
So, like that, I mean, like the people that are giving up their babies might think, oh, this is for life. But the ones that are controlling it and the ones that light the fire for Moloch or whatever, Moloch fire, like those
You think they were
people,
Gnostics?
I think they were trying to control society. I
Yes,
think
they were. I agree.
right,
But I'm talking
right.
about God. Like
Well,
society, yes, that's the same. They want power. There's an elite. They want to keep the masses
exactly.
at bay.
And
They
they
want to
use God as the narrative.
right.
This is God,
Agreed.
blah. God wants your children, give them to me. God wants your
Right.
slavery, give it to me. Like,
Right.
so like
100%
that's
agreed.
really like they're in that way, they're
But they were
creating.
still worshiping that God. And the Gnostics are shitting on the God, like literally, and thinking And I think this is where Bacon came in, and this is where scientism came in, because it was new. It started with alchemy. Is we can take over from God, F God, we're God, and that's
Right.
different. Even those priests were using those poor women and their poor babies to mind control them. 100% agreed. Increase their own power. I think they still were doing it in a sense to please God. And that's what the Gnostics changed. And that's why, that's why we have, like, they're trying to grow babies in laboratories. They don't want women to have babies. And that's just the same as the Gnostics.
Well, they want to control everything, right?
They want to control everything. So, of course, there's a direct line from this kind of satanic. But, you guys are just talking about the church and Christianity kind of using these techniques for their own personal power. Like, who's really the altruist? I mean, I guess there's a debate in philosophy, like, can you really even be an altruist? I don't want to get into that because the whole philosophy thing. But no, I see your point. I mean, in a way where I'm nitpicking a little bit. But for me, I think it's an important point that Gnosticism represents a real radical change in human consciousness. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Like the Jacob Frank and the Sabotage Zevi type of inversion type stuff.
Yeah, he was a straight up Gnostic, and he was doing that stuff to hasten the chaos in the world, to end this world so the demiurge would fail. I think they thought the Messiah was going to be, the pleroma breaking through and liberating them from this horrible planet. See, the irony for me too is that science has proven that life is unbelievably rich and beautiful. And our bodies, just one human body's infinite. You have like 2 trillion cells in your body communicating instantly with each other, and each cell has 400,000 molecules that are dancing in choreographed, symphonic ways that we don't understand. And science has to admit, we don't know where the first cell came from. It's too complicated. It's a miracle. One cell is a miracle. You're made up of 2 trillion cells. So you're not a miracle. You're 2 trillion miracles. And science tells you that. And we should all be like, wow, what a place, man. I can't believe I'm alive. Oh, God, so beautiful. Instead,
it's like being traumatized.
Because we're traumatized by Oberons and Prosperos and our own, dark impulses and our own fears. Like, children are naturally fearful.
Right.
And trying to grapple with it. I do, sometimes I think humanity is not growing. It's a steady state. And nothing new under the sun. And everything's the same. There's just more of everything. There's more images. There's more sound. There's more people. There's more food. There's just more. It's the same, but there's more. But I think we are advancing morally. Like, you can't sacrifice kids out in the open anymore.
Well, I don't know. Nobody's going to jail for those Epstein files. Like, what the hell, man?
I know. Wouldn't that be great? Like, come on.
But who runs the jails? I mean, we better keep voting.
Yeah, let's vote. I mean, we're getting into areas that we can't really know the answer, and it's Heidegger or it's Kant or what is actual reality. Like, that's why we make art, to try to approach what that reality is. And we can't really know. Like, God gave us infinite mysteries, which is a beautiful thing. Like, thank God we can't figure it out. Well, life would get boring. But anyway, I just wanted to jump in with the mind control, which does go way back. It's always a new, and Hans, you keep saying, yeah, I used the same exact word in my last episode. It's a technology that keeps having new iterations. And now, of course, with actual technology, we get it on our computers and our phones, which on one hand are instruments of mind control, and on the other are instruments of liberation. I mean, it's a great age of learning. I just listened to an amazing podcast about ancient Greece and the old plays, and there's so much in a way available to us to liberate ourselves. And the question is what Hans was just saying, like, how can we liberate ourselves, and what does that entail? And just the fact that we're talking about this, and I know it's kind of been a theme of my life, and it certainly goes back to India. Hans, I know you're an expert on Indian philosophy and music and stuff, and that whole idea of liberate, you want to liberate. In a way, we can't. We are trapped here. The Gnostics are partly right. We're, boil water, make rice, get enlightened, boil water, make rice. What's enlightenment? Sleep when you're tired, eat when you're hungry. You still got to sleep, you still got to eat, you still got to have a house over your head. And I think the real challenge is loving your neighbor. And that's the challenge, not going to Mars, not conquering the universe. As Bacon said, humanity can have dominion over the universe. That's a direct quote from Francis Bacon from his most important book on science. Right there, that's a change, like dominion over the universe. To dominate nature, in my mind, is completely insane. But he planted that idea, and it grew, and now I think that's a pretty common belief if it's unconscious. And 5 billion of us show that they have that unconscious belief that they can take a jibby jabby and stop probably this mythical creature roaming the earth, but they believe that we can dominate nature. And the whole science of immunology is kind of based on that idea, and that originated with Francis Bacon, from what I can tell. I think he's credited with that in normie history, and that's a new element in human thinking, that we could dominate nature. We're not part of nature. We don't merge with nature. We dominate nature. And it's a scary, crazy idea, but I think he did manage, through that book, New Atlantis, started it. We have now Peter Thiel's and Elon Musk's and Yuval Noah Harari, who I love to rag on. As scientists say.
That document that we were looking at, from Estabrooks to Hoover, that is showing their ability to dominate the nature of the human mind.
Yeah.
And those human minds are co-creating our reality.
Mm-hmm.
So
there you go.
In a way, they are dominating the new reality, especially with the like you said, the doom scroll of the phone and the TV news, and luckily that's becoming out of favor now, and people are going to other sources.
Yeah, we're doing this, but we do know that hypnosis wears off, and that there is a core. The soul, eventually returns. It can be damaged. The body can be damaged. I think they have managed to damage some brains, but generally hypnosis wears off, and that's reason for celebration. That's why they have to continually, as I'm not telling you guys anything, continually reinforce the programming. Yeah. And undoing the programming is very, very difficult for various reasons, but hypnosis wears off. I think it's really important to remember that. And humanity returns, and love saves the day. And that's why they're going to lose, because they have to lie, and they're up against this, this wave of love, essentially, that we all are. And eventually they're going to eat themselves or something, they can't. Probably. They're shoveling water against the tide. They've been extraordinarily successful, since the publishing of New Atlantis. It's really remarkable, but it's got to end. It's against nature.
Yeah, even the SRA victims, the programming wears off when they get to be 28, 30 years old. They start to
Exactly.
have their memories back again, and
Yeah.
the brain just it wants to fix itself. It
Yeah.
it loves itself, and
Right.
you know this is
Exactamente.
so. There's a question there. Does the guest have a podcast? A hidden life. The hidden life is best, right? Talk about your podcast, please.
Well, I started the podcast because the book I'm writing, it's just so vast because it's the life of Francis Bacon, it's Shakespeare. One Shakespeare play takes me months to do justice to. It's the history of science, history of the British Empire, the Elizabethan milieu. What else? I mean, Freemasonry, because Francis Bacon seems to have been a key player in formulating modern Freemasonry. And I'm not alone in anything I'm saying, besides the fact that I'm saying, the Shakespeare plays are mind control. But even people are coming around to saying that Shakespeare, there would be no British Empire without Shakespeare. That's some new stuff. So it's just a huge amount, and I want to do a really good job on the book. So as I get this new information, I make a podcast out of it. And the podcast episodes, a lot of them are going to be chapters of the book. But I did 3 introductory ones, and then I started hitting the plays. Like episode 4 and 5 is a deep dive into Macbeth, which I found to be like deeply, deeply Gnostic, and a Gnostic inversion of all values. And Freemasons say there's Freemasonry stuffed into it. Then The Tempest. And The Tempest turns out to be, according to a book written in 1923, an allegory of initiation into a mystery religion. What? But there you have it. And it's obviously very, very important to Mr. Huxley. It's the first play in the first folio. Just talking about the Shakespeare phenomenon alone is a huge task. Oh, then the other thing is the Shakespeare authorship question. Like, what is that? Did Shakespeare write the plays, or did someone else? That's a whole book in and of itself, which of course I won't make it a whole book, but it's a fascinating, fascinating story about the hoax that is William Shakespeare, a man who did exist and who was in London and who was a part-time actor and part-time theater owner, but apparently he never owned a book and he never wrote a letter. And there's no evidence of his handwriting besides 6 shaky signatures.
He couldn't even sign his name, though, right?
He couldn't even write his name.
Yeah.
But Bacon was so brilliant, and other people like Ben Jonson and a bunch of people, they were brilliant. I mean, the pressure cooker that was Elizabethan London, with the pressure between the Catholics and the Protestants, and the pressure that was England itself, where, get 300 men and kill the king. You're the king, man. You got some distant bloodline to the king. You're the king. So they were really stressed to the max, which produced this incredible spy apparatus and incredible espionage. Like everything was espionage all the time. If you left the country, you had to get permission. It was a police state. And everyone was spying on everyone all the time. So sometimes I think like we're worried about being spied on. You could say 10 wrong words up in, Northampton in the, 200 miles from London, and you might get arrested the next day because their spies were everywhere. You had to watch what you did at all times. You had to constantly thread the needle. And they were brilliant too. These people from Sir Walter Raleigh, they were mathematicians, cartographers, painters, writers, poets. The level of poetry, a lot of it was Bacon, but the level of genius there was really incredible. I equate it to like Florence in the 1400s with Da Vinci and Michelangelo and Botticelli, and or Athens, 400 with Socrates and Plato and all those incredible scientists and philosophers and engineers. Something happened in London around that time, and it's this blending of cultures. It's very Germanic, it's very Celtic, It's French. And that pressure cooker, like something happened. And it's kind of undeniable that the last 400 years of world history is the story of the British Empire. And it started right there. And I think I said this in my early podcast when I was just getting started, that the line between old and new runs through Francis Bacon. And, you know, normie historians say that. There's this giant book on the Enlightenment that won all kinds of awards, and it basically starts with Francis Bacon as the patron saint of the Enlightenment. And the Enlightenment really changed everything. And he had an enormous influence on everyone. Kant dedicates Critique of Pure Reason to Bacon. He has a massive quote from Francis Bacon to start that book. He influenced Leibniz and Newton and Hume and Locke. And I mean, if he did create Freemasonry, which I think he did, I've assembled an enormous amount of information, which is on Patreon or Substack. Just sign up for a free subscription. I mean, what an incredible thing. And that's a mind control organization. You kind of mind control yourself first, these secret societies. Then you go out and mind control the world. And I think he started Freemasonry. It's crazy.
Right.
It's just completely, I call it the strangest story, ever told. My mind is blown by it constantly. So yeah, check out the website. My webmaster did a great job, and start digging around and reach out and ask me any questions. No, I'm writing a book. I have to get the book done as soon as I'm done, because I get a little obsessive, and to just to explore one Shakespeare play can take me months, as it has with Midsummer Night's Dream, because that's how dense these plays are. And that's why there's millions of books written about Shakespeare, because there's so much packed into the language of the play that you can create your own reality of each play. You could say it's about this, and someone else will say it's about that, and there's these massive debates. But please check out what's on offer. And for $5 a month, there's tons more, like the Macbeth podcast. And I think Romeo and Juliet is a real mind blower. And it's supposedly about romance, but it's actually a horror movie where they set up Romeo appears to be mind controlled, and they're like looking for a virgin to sacrifice. And there's an essay in that, you can read about it, or you can listen to the podcast. It's all there in the language. It's just filled with alchemy. It's filled with vampire imagery. And it's filled with the imagery of the ancient ritual of pharmakos, where they would sacrifice, in ancient Greece, a human being or a goat. It turned in ultimately to a goat, to bring peace to the city, because there's too much tension in the city. So the alchemy of Romeo and Juliet is the Montagues and Capulets are fighting, and they create a union of the two into one by sacrificing Juliet, who becomes, at the end of the play, a golden statue. And there's
like
peace.
Athena.
She's
Right?
literally turned into a golden statue. Like, the symbolism's right in your face. And there's peace in the city.
So
Romeo
like the golden statue of Athena in the Parthenon, right? That's what
very
you're
good.
getting at, right? Okay.
Very good.
Who shakes her spear
Shakes her
in the
spear.
golden light? Yeah, right.
She was the Sophia for Bacon, Athena.
Right.
Yeah, Shakespeare is a reference to Athena shaking her spear. And she was the goddess of war and wisdom. And she had a helmet of invisibility, so she could stay hidden, which is exactly Bacon. Bacon was a notorious warmonger once he got power. And a lot of that's just coming to light, but he was constantly advocating for war. And King James would turn him down for various reasons, because it was stupid. But he was so hot for empire, he wanted to just immediately start in against the Spanish. He wanted to join the 30 Years' War, which would have been like an incredible catastrophe for England. So I call him the smartest and most influential man of all time, but he did a lot of dumb shit as well. which we won't go into now.
Well,
What
it's
else can I help you with,
it's a good
gentlemen? I'm
thing.
sorry to like.
What do you mean? No, no.
I mean, I'm just so obsessed with this stuff.
No, your contribution has been a big help for our understanding, because like we think about like the nuts and bolts of the, with this document we were getting very technical with the with what exactly they were saying and turning people into weapons and stuff. But this gives us an idea of the whole society building part of it, and
Yeah.
and I kind of want to bring us in towards that society building into the future, talk about more another piece of fiction. I wanted to talk about Brave New World and
Yeah.
how that is how they build babies from,
Yep.
from the and they control them completely, and where they love their servitude, as Huxley said. And so like I see that is where, that's the real where they're trying to push it. War and the convid and all this stuff that's happening is just like on the way to that.
Yeah.
Someday we're all gonna have, go to the feelies and chew the gum that gives you whatever endorphins, you know what I mean, and fly around in your copter and look at the savages down there that are reading Shakespeare, right?
Your listeners
So,
know that Brave New World comes from The Tempest.
that's right. That's a quote from, yes, right. So I found it fitting that, and it's great that we could.
Well,
have
thanks
you
for
here.
having me on. It's been a blast.
That's great. Hans,
Yeah, thanks,
do you
Robert.
wanna-
Thanks for joining us.
do you guys want to I mean, we kind of really, you guys haven't been talking much.
I'm nothing. I'm just happy to listen along. People go check out Hidden Life is Best. I put the website up, Substack, and on my side, I'll put those links in the show notes. People can check it out. Also,
Hey, where can
the
I get
shows
that
I've done with
document?
Robert, like 6.
I'm sorry, William. What was that?
Oh,
There. Where can I get that document you guys have been reading?
Black
from?
Vault. You just go to Black Vault and look up Estabrooks.
Oh, okay.
There's
great.
2 of them. There's
one with
and then
Erickson in
there's
it,
a
right?
yeah, that's the one that
Eric-
we were looking at. Yeah, the first
Erickson
one.
and Estabrooks. Yeah,
Right.
that's incredible find.
It's
And
the most
set.
important mind control document.
If you want to
Prior
watch
to the
Midsummer
encounter.
Night's Dream, there's a free version on YouTube. It's the one I'm using to analyze line by line. It's very hippified. It's obviously made by an initiate, a guy named Peter Hall, who was a big Shakespeare director. It's got really big stars in it, one of whom is still alive. What's her name? Judi Dench. Judi Dench and what's her name is only 17 in the movie. Oh God, she's a huge English movie star. Diana Rigg is in it.
She was she played damn, I'm my mind's blank.
Helen Mirren.
Mirren, yes.
Helen Mirren is in it. Judi Dench, Diana Rigg, and see what you think of it. I mean, I was horrified first viewing, especially the treatment of the women, because Gnostics hate women. The plays are constantly degrading women, but female intellectuals really like Shakespeare because
It's weird that the
multi-dimensional women characters.
it's their dark goddess though, like Athena and Diana.
Well, it's the
and,
goddess whore thing.
right, yes.
They worship the
Mystery
the
Babylon.
Sophia, from afar, but actual women are like trash. And the Gnostics even the worst because we don't want any more babies. Well, you're pregnant.
Yeah.
And it's in Shakespeare. It's very rare for there to be just constantly beating up on women. I mean, Macbeth gets blamed on his wife, Lady Macbeth. Just throughout. Ophelia, just throughout. And there's always a few exceptions because he veils everything. You can always point to an exception, which is what people go to, which I think is his understanding of the mind. Like we'll grab onto whatever, log floating by in the ocean when we're tossed in. So in Midsummer Night's Dream, you'll remember this great poetry. There's undeniably great poetry that you're left with. And in The Tempest, we all know it. We all know it too. We are such stuff as dreams are made on, and our little life is rounded with the sleep. Beautiful. And you forget that he just traumatized everyone on the island and had control of a spirit who's like a demon. He literally had a demon.
Just like John Dee said to do.
Exactly. It's controlling demons, and you forget because our little life is rounded with a sleep. It's incredible. It's a deep, deep understanding of how the human mind works, and he can put this stuff right in front of your face, and you won't see it because he made you giggle. And they did see poetry as alchemy, and because it is language, because language is the key to all of this. Even that record, Hans, the music helps for sure and sets the mood and relaxes the mind, but hypnosis in humans doesn't take place without language and creating pictures in your mind. And he somehow knew it. And it appears he was just extraordinarily precocious. And then they set up a program of education. They loved education, the tutors. They all read the classics. They had all the books. They had the Plutarch and the Thucydides and the Aristotle and Plato and Seneca and Horace and all of it. And the difference is they read it, and they read it in the Greek, and they read it in the Latin, and they talked about it. And it made them like crazy smart. Those classics are, incredible. The wisdom in those books is incredible. And apparently he read them all, and he just had them at their command. And of course, the final thing is that the rumor is that Bacon put the final gloss on the translation of the King James Bible. And there's some subtle use of language in the King James Bible that changes your interpretation of scripture, which I haven't been able to do a deep dive into that, but there's a few examples of it. And the imagery on that Bible is very Masonic.
And English law is based on that Bible.
Yeah, Bacon had a big influence on English law, which is common law, which I gotta say I don't really understand that. But he was a major lawyer. He was Attorney General. He became Lord Chancellor under King James. Nobody knows what he did the first 25 years of his life because he was writing Shakespeare. And then suddenly he's like Lord Chancellor within like 10 years after James comes along. And he keep losing my train of thought.
Bloodline.
Right. The bloodline is through the Queen. He wanted to be king, I think. I mean, sometimes I'm totally speculating, but it does look like other Baconians think he did want to be king. And then he eventually got married, even though he was homosexual. He married a 13-year-old girl. Of course, no kids, not even a single letter written to her. He, oh God, I was going to say something about, I forget what I was going to say, but he got involved in the world's first corporations. He helped form corporate law. And the United States was founded by a corporation, and we're being run by corporations today. But he was on the board of the Virginia Corporation, which settled Jamestown in 1609, named for the Virgin Queen, who was his mother. I'll go to bat. I'll go to the mat that Francis Bacon was the son of Queen Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen.
Wasn't intelligence created for the East India Company?
Yeah, they preceded the Virginia Company, and Bacon wasn't directly involved with them, but he was involved with those people. And
I'm just saying how that worldwide network of intelligence was like, and they were a business that was beyond the rule of, and then the city of London, the Queen has to ask permission to set foot in the city of London. Like,
but
who's
the Brits
really
had their
boss?
spies everywhere before the East India Company.
Right.
They were merchants.
The Masons
everywhere.
too. Like the Masons have they put up their little lodge in all the Philippine Islands and all their, to really, and then any Mason gets to go anywhere and just be like, knock,
Yep.
knock. Hey, I'm a Mason, you know, and
That's
like,
the
oh
genius
yeah, here's
of
some
it.
food and whatever. Tell us
And
your information.
only recent scholarship has uncovered that Freemasonry is the origin of globalism. Because
Right.
it's crazy, but this is new because people never bothered with Masonry because it just seemed crazy. You know, what's it called? A fork and beer club. We go back to Solomon. We go back to Euclid. They were like, but scholars have recently been studying it. They've been getting access to the libraries, and they found that the British Army, every single regiment had its own Masonic lodge. So wherever they went, which was all over the world, was Freemasonry. And then they would initiate, you know, the elites of that country. And I think 100 countries around the world have Masonic lodges. And it's brilliant. The whole structure of Freemasonry is based on human male psychological need. And many of your psychological and emotional needs are answered by being in Freemasonry. It's really, really remarkable. And he didn't invent it out of whole cloth, but I think he put the final touches on it.
I just say that actually in Masonry itself, whatever you call it, it's much, much older than that. I mean,
Yeah,
you know, at least, I mean, Knights Templar was sort of the coming, you know, influenced by the Hashishans, Hassan and
100%.
Sabah,
Yeah, I have a
and
whole
that,
giant essay on this.
but these particular lodges, so you have particular smaller, you have the actual, you know, the Masonic knowledge of actual Masons that had certain types of ancient architectural knowledge, right? And
Mm-hmm.
with some of the things were banned by the church, so it was necessary to encode that knowledge, you know, within boundaries, right? Because these were things that were forbidden, right? You could, but then you go back to, you know, the origin of Masonry, of course, the, you know, the construction of Solomon's temple,
Yeah,
and that, and so that the encoding of, you know, the master mason on that, like he, whatever, he ended up being killed because he didn't, you know, he didn't say the right code word. But basically, these types of lodge fraternal orders infiltrating in various types of networks through types of, you know, in the court life, in religious life, and things like that. Now, Freemasonry turned it into much more of a global phenomena that was actually public. Okay, so before that, you have these interconnected types of, you know, secret knowledge, you know, or you know, whether they're financial, occultic, or whatever. And so the organization of Freemasonry, you know, serves as, you know, obviously multiple hierarchical initial, right? So you have the 33rd degree, but it actually goes up to 99 degrees in actual
yeah,
masonry. This is much older. And so these things, there's particular spectrums of deployment. So masonry, as we know it, which I think it's basically its purpose is pretty much done. You know, it doesn't. I mean, there's some degree it's still there, but yeah, obviously with the United States was a Grand Lodge, the New Atlantis, right? This is the same doctrine that the United States was founded upon the Masonic principles. They all go back to Egypt. You have the same symbolism and architecture, right? So you can trace all this stuff to a common root. But um, I mean, it's not, you know, what it is there's, it's initiatory. There is a lot of, if you read like Rights and Dogma, right?
Morals
Uh,
and Dogma, Albert
Oh, sorry,
Albert
Pike.
Morals
Pike.
and Dogma. Yeah, Morals and Dogma. There. You go through that. There's a lot of interesting information, right? These are,
Kabbalah.
I mean, all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
stuff in there. Whether or not this is the full spectrum of that knowledge, it's still in these texts, and so they are directly aligning with these more ancient origins, which sort of predicates the fact that this has spread and it comes into the public as these organizations, you know, again, I think beginning with the Knights Templar when they go to Scotland, right?
Yeah,
The ones that fled. they went to, they're worshiping Baphomet and doing each other up the whatever, it's
Two
fucking,
men on one horse. Okay.
yeah. But
What
no,
does that mean?
Yeah.
but so, I mean, the conviviality, that's all just, I mean, maybe 95% of Masons are just, they don't know what they're doing. But I mean, it's an order that once you take these initiations and you are integrated into a much larger scalar system. So you are being placed within these particular fields of energetic manifestation that are going around in much larger geopolitical things, right? So by the time you actually realize what is going on, you can't turn around, right? And you know what I mean? And so that the penalty of death, how about the anti-Masonic party, right? They,
Yeah.
it's not just guys hanging out. The anti-Masonic party and the guy, people were getting killed, right? That it was filmed. I mean, it was formed because
William
of that.
Morgan affair.
William
yeah.
Morgan,
Yeah.
yeah. So he was killed. So, I mean, it's not just. I mean, the guys getting together and hanging out. I think this, within this structure, it's one element. It is an important element. It is. It has again multiple purposes, but also you are
Yeah.
aligning people, and you're taking oaths and initiations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Compliance
you-
with the unknown higher above. Right?
Yeah, and your energy is now directed towards that, and you are, as you get more power in the world, you become more and more a slave. So these are just levels of slavery.
Interesting. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Interesting.
That's just like the demons that Solomon was using to build the temple. Like they
Right.
were his slave, and they had legions of slave demons below them too. Like, in the Goetia magic you read about, like, oh, Paimon had this many legions, and and to control them is to control all of them underneath them. So that's the same hierarchical structure of, like, the Pope and the bishops or the Freemasons or whatever. Like the Porch Masons are the lowest level of the pyramid, and then you got the above them and going, Rosicrucians maybe, and keep going. And then it's like further darker, more satanic, and it's control over the whole thing, and the control's based in the fear. And it's like a psychosis
Well,
of
see, there's
psychopathy.
you forget there's rewards too. That's really what it's built on.
Sure,
That's why
all the
it's
demons
brilliant.
get their rewards. They but they within
But I
parameters.
mean,
They
just
can't
on the
go
human
against.
level, like you've got friends.
Mhm.
You've got a place to go. Back
Sure,
in the day, there was no hotels.com.
that's true.
You went somewhere and you had friends.
Right.
And not only that, they've taken an oath to help you. And not only that, you all share a secret. That's huge. Bacon even literally wrote about that, like to share a secret. And then you're told, Gnostic style, that you're better than everyone else because you have the secrets. And you just feel good. You may never get called upon to do anything for the empire, but your whole, as Hans was saying, your whole like being will be now flowing in that direction.
It's
And you feel better. And also business contacts. I mean, it's great.
Right.
If you got to print out 1,000 flyers, you're going to hire your brother who has a printing shop. So it's great for business. There's multiple benefits.
even with the symbolism, you got the rough stone.
Oh, and then
then
all the symbolism.
And
yes.
then like
Infinite.
the hewn like the smooth stone that they create how to. But then what do you do with the brick? You put it in a wall with all the other ones, like block out the light of the sun.
But it's great
so-
symbolism too. Like
Yeah.
you do respond to that. We are deeply connected to building, especially men, and the symbolism really is great. And there was a poet from France named Dubartas who had heavy ties to Scotland. France and Scotland were very tight, and his poetry was revolving around building as a metaphor for the human. And I think that's where part of that idea came in. Like we can we can use the idea of masonry and building for building a human being and building a community. And the symbolism really works. I think it's very effective. And then the initiation ceremony itself is very, very effective. It really hits hard on these guys. And not too many people leave Freemasonry. The other thing is you can leave. It's not like Scientology. Although I think once you get into the higher levels, it's pretty hard to leave.
Probably
Occasionally,
blackmail.
like
Blackmail is
blackmail,
why. That
just-
seals the door behind them, and then they can't get out.
yeah, I'm sure that happens. We need some more high-level defectors to tell us. But I think I think it becomes almost impossible to defect because you're still going to meetings all the time. There is a guy on YouTube, William Schnabelen, who was 32nd degree Freemason. He's got some blood-curdling stories. There's a few. But there's
He
secret
has a very
society.
long last name, Sean. It's S. Do you know who Bill Schnabelen is? You heard
SC8?
that?
No, I don't.
It's
I do know. Yeah, he's interesting guy.
SCHNOELBLEN. It's like super duper long.
N-O-E.
He's an old timer. He's an old.
Is he
Yeah.
still alive?
I don't know.
Yeah.
He's still
Okay.
going.
Yeah, he's been
I
going
gotta-
for decades.
That's
Yeah,
great.
yes, man. He's
Dude,
a-
that's the kind of people I need to know about. That's great. Thank you.
There's a few others. Nobody who seems to have been in the higher level within the level. Like 32nd degree is one thing, but like you were saying, there's secret societies within the secret society.
Right. That's how Rhodes built his thing. The rings
Yeah.
within rings. It's the
But-
same structure. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Tom.
Sorry to interrupt, but Bill Schnabelen, wasn't he was like a Satanist? He like joined like so many different
Yeah.
organizations, right? Didn't he? He
Yeah.
was like a Mason. He was a Mormon, right?
Yeah.
He was a
Well, they're
Mormon.
Masons
He
too, right?
joined like everything.
He was what
It's
gets weird
called
is
a
he claims
cult-
he was a
cult shopper. He's a cult shopper.
he was a cult shopper. He claimed he was a vampire.
Oh yeah, he became a vampire.
And that's where you
Yeah,
get
yeah.
like, dude, I don't know
Wow.
about that. But he worked himself into such a state, he might have actually been believing it, that he was literally doing that. He got way out there, and he claims a lot of magical things happened. But he's got some good videos. That's a good book. That Masonry Towards the Light. He's all over YouTube. And he was the real deal. I checked him out. I mean, during the pandemic, he had the right angle and he was vocal about it. I used that almost as a litmus test, whether to fully investigate someone more. Like that said a lot about you, what your opinions were during the pandemic, which is, definitely an operation springing out of everything we're talking about. It had to have had a secret society coordinating all the media over
A
the whole world.
worldwide one, right?
All the media, all the big medical organizations, all the entertainers, of course, because they've got the entertainers in their pocket since the get-go. Because they knew, nobody cared who William Shakespeare was back in the day, but the guy playing the Hamlet, they knew who he was. And to this day, ask your friends that watch TV, ask them if they know who wrote Mad Men. Who wrote Game of Thrones? Oh, I don't know.
Who was
Who
the
cares?
first? Who was the first man to receive a COVID shot in England?
William Shakespeare.
Dude, so ironic. Dude, they do that on purpose. Obviously, it's part of it's part of the
joke.
structure, right? Because that helps to align all of those things on that
Yeah.
structure that Hans was talking about.
Yeah.
That way, it puts all of our energy into the way we understand this. Goes along with this thing that happened over here. Goes along with this over here, and it builds the structure that creates the whole illusion, right?
Yeah, the
So
epistemology.
they had to say William Shakespeare when they're unveiling this new thing in what was it? It started in March, but then it was like May 1st was the main day, where I guess Trump was like, "Oh, we're gonna keep it. It's gonna, like up until then, we're like, oh, it's gonna be over. Like Valpurgisnacht they're gonna let us be free on May Day, but then nope, we're locking down. That's like that is the schedule of their dark magic. They start it in March. They'd start doing the sacrifices and get ramped up
Interesting.
for May 1st. Boom,
Interesting.
Beltane, and then that pushes you all the way through summer, and then you get the harvest, and like it's
Wow.
the same. Like that's
Wow.
their calendar of
Incredible.
sacrifice. They do the sacrifice for the 40 days before Beltane. So anyway, so yeah, like it.
And of course, it was science that got everyone to fall in line. That science is
The
telling you to
illusion.
do this. Oh, so
Yeah.
it's scientific. Well,
Right.
then it's true. That's
Right.
really mind blowing. That's actually what got me into this. Was I saw science was the new religion, and I think that's how
Fauci is the science, right? You can't
Right.
question Fauci.
I mean, you can't say that in
Right.
science, but he said it, and not one reporter would call him on it. It's just,
Yeah.
it's all just so incredible. But they've got people unconsciously believing in science because they don't believe in God really anymore. They believe in Darwin. They just replace the beliefs. And I really do think Bacon didn't maybe know the details, but in a way he did know the details. And it's in New Atlantis. If you do a close reading, it's really sinister. And one guy, I think it's Howard White, claims that there's veiled references to human sacrifice in the New Atlantis. And I found human sacrifice in Shakespeare. Like this little boy that Oberon wants, that the whole key to the play is give me the boy. He gets the boy disappears. You never see the boy. And because Oberon and Titania are having such a quarrel, the weather's a mess. Like everything's just wrong. But by the end of the play, everything's right again. So did they do a sacrifice? I think it's hinted at. There's definitely a strong hint of it in Macbeth. I think Romeo and Juliet is literally a human sacrifice. So yeah, I think it's encoded in there. And alchemists back in the day, I read this on Wikipedia, so it must be true. Sacrifices were required for the working to be a success. Sacrifice is really potent symbol, but apparently alchemy and sacrifice are tied together. And of course, they just changed it into punishment. Like they loved to chop people up on the streets of London in the Elizabethan era. Really
Put their heads on a pike.
And then put their head on a pike. Like really brutal.
Drawn, quartered, the whole bit.
Drawing and quartering. When I found out what that was, I couldn't even talk about it.
That's
A couple years. It's so grisly and gruesome.
And it's a public thing. The whole public has to see, and it traumatizes everybody. And then they say, "Don't go against the king, or we'll do this to you." And it's like just like, what happened to Jesus? Don't go against Rome, or we'll do this to you.
They'll dig you up and drag you out of your grave. That's what they did to Cromwell.
That's what they did to Cromwell.
They dragged him out and displayed his skull, like never betray the king again. Don't try to overthrow the government.
And there's some extreme violence in the Shakespeare plays. Really extreme. There's one play called Titus Andronicus. It's one of the 10 I haven't seen, but some poor woman gets her hand raped, and then they cut off her hands and cut out her tongue, so she can't say anything.
Yeah, no, it's a bloodbath. It's like a serial killer play.
That's based on Philomela of Ovid.
Oh, really?
The Philomela gets turned into a nightingale. Tereus. It wasn't Tereus. It was Tereus, not the other guy that was in the
Tiresias.
The Minotaur guy. No, it's Tereus who, he rapes and cuts out her tongue of Philomela so she can't speak, and she weaves a loom and to show her sister who's married to Tereus and has a child with him, and then she's so mad she feeds the child to Reyes. She kills him and puts him in like the stew, and he's so mad. You know, that's where the whole thing from Titus came from.
Yeah, I haven't studied that play yet.
Yeah.
Hamlet. How about this? Hamlet, who just really seizes people's imagination, and more stuff's been written on Hamlet and more debates. But if you strip it away, a woman wrote a book in the 70s called Hamlet and Revenge, where again, you got to go line by line, but the clues are all there that that's not a ghost, that's a demon. And the clue is he goes underground. And if a ghost went underground, that means it was a demon. He clearly goes underground in a famous scene, which means that Hamlet was possessed by a demon. And he's homosexual, right? He rejects Ophelia and slobbers all over Horatio. And he's a serial killer. Forgive my laughter, but he's a demon-possessed homosexual serial killer who destroys the kingdom. Right? Everyone's dead, and in walks Fortinbras, and Hamlet's last word, my dying breath. You know, the election lights on Fortinbras. He has my dying wish. Fortinbras means strong arm. So again, he's like a major chaos agent who's handed the keys to the strong arm. And we're right back into that same cycle of trauma, brutality, and control. And it's right there in Hamlet, who again never prays, never consults a priest. Yeah, the whole topic of revenge is another topic, fascinating topic, but there you go. Right in front of our face.
The powerful state comes and makes everything better at the end.
Yeah.
All the chaos of all the
cool. Strong arm is here.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah. So Fauci says can't think that. Okay. We're gonna fix all this chaos with our white coats and our dictates of the truth, you know.
Science. Trust the science, not trust in God. Yeah. Trust in science.
Trust us when we change the definition of what a pandemic is or what a vaccine is, and we're just going to change the definition and not tell anybody. And okay, now this is true. Oh, really? Because the words are not the same anymore. Yeah.
Well, we should probably wrap this up, guys.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
thanks a million.
I was going to say that.
I'm getting tired. It's late for me. Thanks a million, guys, for having me on. I really appreciate it, and thanks for doing what you're doing. It's really fascinating finding that document. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's been
groundbreaking. You broke my bubble about Erickson. I thought he was a cool guy. I thought Milton Erickson was a cool guy.
No, he wasn't at all. Actually.
Nope.
Very dark, very dark. The first wife in the insane asylum, and then the 20-year-old helper that he could hypnotize.
What show did you go into Erickson in detail on? Was that 13?
I don't remember offhand.
I listened to 14, 15, and 16.
It was
anyway, great stuff, guys. Thanks a million.
All right, thanks, Rob. I'll let you go.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right. If people go check out The Hidden Life is Best, I will put links again, like I said earlier, to his website and Spotify. We had 360 live listeners, so thanks everybody for listening.
That's awesome.
Candace.
Yeah, so a lot of people. Candace levels.
Crumb off her table.
Yeah, really, if that. A little micron off her table.
Yeah, but, it would have been nice if she just mentioned your name, or or at least that one episode that Hans brought that to the table, or the guy that did the article that we were reading from. Like, at least we said the guy's name, who wrote where the thought came from, and we were displaying his website, showing what and discussing it. That would have been nice if there was a little bit of recognition from Candace. Maybe someday. Hopefully,
I told my wife, I said, baby, we're going to retire. Well, I'm a star now. And Candace mentioned us.
Yeah.
No, she just mentioned the information.
It's too close to be random. It's way too close to what we were talking on Sunday night, because she took Monday off. So she mentioned it in her first show on Tuesday. after we had talked about it. So either it went through the ether or one of her team saw it or something and said, hey, Erica Kirk acts a lot like freaking Eleanor Island, you know.
That was
check
good,
out
right?
Robert Frederick, guys. He's done a lot of shows.
you.
I've done a lot of shows with him. Anything you want to add? Do you want to bring people on, or if listening, we can give them the I don't know how much energy you guys got or time.
I mean, I have some. I mean, I have energy. I was just gonna say if we could get some comments. I don't know if we were.
Yeah, you can go through all the comments.
Guys, I do have to go also, so you guys can continue
Okay.
without me. So I will fade into the Ethernet.
Okay.
We love
Why don't you let people know where they can find you?
The Resonant State. I am on YouTube trying to hit 3 figures. So just sign up, please subscribe. Resonant State, BitChute, Spotify, Rumble, Odyssey. My website is hansletter.com. And yeah, it's trying to roll. So please check it out. Please like and subscribe. And thank you guys again for having the show. And it's been great, you know, and definitely that was pretty cool seeing the connection from some of that Shakespearean stuff ties in. And I'm sure they were very much influenced by these techniques. So, all right. Thank you so much.
The imagery and stuff. Yeah. Thanks, Hans. Cheers. Okay.
That was
through the comments. Yeah, it was a good one.
Seemed like you guys weren't talking too much.
I was happy just sitting there listening. I didn't really have much to say. Like, he's a guest, so I just let him talk. I don't know. Anybody have any questions or anything in the chat? Thanks, Hans, says John's. Tolkien says, brilliant tonight. See you, Hans. Tolkien. I need to play my puppet song now to go to sleep. Good luck with that. Thanks, his face. Got some dating secrets. Thanks, Robert. Interesting, says Blues Johnson. Alex Iphigenia, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Hi, Tara. Welcome. Seen you around. Matthias, take care, fellas. Thank you, Matthias. Thanks for everybody. Magister Templi. I know what that means.
That's master of the temple. That's right. You know, yeah. Magister,
Tolkien.
like magician.
Catholics were serious about getting rid of demons. They sure were. There's no question. Speaking of theater, it would be awesome if you guys did an episode on Ken Kesey's play Twister.
What?
Virtual reality.
Oh, okay. Ken Kesey. I thought Kinsey for a minute. I was like, Kinsey made a play, but I read it wrong. Sorry.
We've talked a lot about Margaret Mead and it's not Esther Brooks. What's the other guy's name who was associated with the Macy conferences, who knew Kesey or was like the doctor at Kesey? Do you remember offhand? Macy.
The doctor who
doctor who was like associated. He was like either worked with Kesey or was around Kesey.
Was it Jolly West? That dude's everywhere.
Kind of. His name is
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. Bateson, Gregory Bateson.
Right.
Bateson
we talked about him in the series.
Yeah, we talked about Bateson a lot. So I did not know about this. I've never heard of this Matthias, this whole Twister of virtual reality. So I'll have to look into it. But it sounds like that is kind of a bullseye with what we've been following in this whole series. So,
and Twister, like the game from the 60s, like wasn't that when it was invented? Like the Twister game where they like
virtual reality. Saw it on Wikipedia. Hey, Hill Doggy, welcome. It's been a while. Hill Doggy's one of my old streamer buddies from before I got bumped off of YouTube.
Picture.
Yeah.
That's great.
F. Rose says, I find it very creepy that many of the most evil Shakespeare plays were taught from grade 7, 13 in the 80s. Yes, they were taught in my high school too.
Right.
I mean, Hamlet's pretty creepy, guys. Like, there's like crazy stuff and murders and vengeance and play within a play. Super complex to put that in front of a bunch of kids. So
right. And like he was saying that the language lulls them to sleep. They're in class, like they're not really. So it's going in the subconscious, probably.
Probably. Like, I mean, what a great thing. I think that Robert Frederick makes that point that all this stuff binds people together in a common conscious and subconscious level. That's why all these English, like all the WASPs I grew up with, Shakespeare was like paramount. Like, it was like everybody had Shakespeare, went to Shakespeare plays, listened to it, quoted it. It was all very important to them. From
That's
the English,
why
yeah.
that was like the barometer for the savage in Brave New World. Look, he reads Shakespeare.
Right.
Like that's what he's one of us. Like
Yes.
you know?
It was kind of like the apex of like an intellectual, like, oh, you know Shakespeare, you can
Right.
quote Shakespeare, you know the soliloquies, you know Hamlet's famous statements, you know.
But it's like, but really, it's like you have a good memory. It's not like, and you've been mind controlled properly. You know, it's
You've
the
been
way-
inducted or whatever. I mean, into
Yeah.
this whole universe of Shakespeare, which is Gnostic. And it's a good point. There's no references to Christianity or anything having to do with the Old, Testament book.
Right.
Wow, this is crazy, Matthias. I had no idea. Played by Ken Kesey, loosely based on Frank Baum's 1900 novel,
Wow.
Wizard of Oz film version. The
Okay.
play also features the West African deity Legba. That's a demon. I've heard of Legba
Legba.
before.
Yeah, Papa Legba. He's the intermediary between humans and the Loa, the gods, and he speaks all languages. And you can't speak to the Loa because they got their own language, and each one has a different language. But Papa Legba knows all, and the one you meet at the
Right.
crossroads,
Right.
and that's who, like,
Voodoo.
Robert
Johnson.
Robert Johnson, right? Yes, Robert Johnson was at the crossroads and sold his soul and all that hoodoo and the voodoo. Right.
Wow, that's why the involvement of the chat is so important, man. You guys are
Right. We love the chat. That's
Yeah, I
great.
love
I'm
the
glad.
chat. So
Yeah.
thanks for all the comments.
Yeah, I'm
Give
definitely
him
gonna have to
tobacco.
look at
That's
that.
right. Who did we do? Did I do that show with you where the black guy was talking about Legba? It was somebody else. I'll send you the clip because it's an African dude in like Brazil, and it's
Yeah.
in that kind of syncretized African voodoo stuff, Legba. And people will go and give this guy money for readings from Legba, and it's really scary, dude. It's super sinister and diabolic. Like,
Yeah.
let me see if I can
They
find
get
the videos.
so in voodoo, they the term is that they are ridden by the demon, ride like a horse,
Right.
and like a chevalier or some like the word I forget, but it's because they're French. But anyway, they take on the demon and they eat glass. They'll like do like and
Guardian
then
of the Crossroads, just like you said.
right. And so the people that are partaking in the ritual, they all willingly become possessed by demons, or whatever, to give the demon a body for a little while to have some drink or what. They'll drink like full bottle of wine and then when they come out of their state, they're not drunk. Like it's like the demon took it. It's crazy. It's really it's amazing.
He's the smiling hat man. And some of these people who do ayahuasca, they run into the smiling hat man Legba. In a kind of different iteration or something. It's really crazy. I'm trying to remember. I had a guest on this religion shoot.
The hat looks like the chthonic pot, like Tanit and Bal Haman has one. Like I spoke with Headless Giant on my show. We were talking about Tanit and the sacrifice of babies to her in Carthage, and she has like a pot on her head, and it's like that shows that she's underground. It's like chthonic realm type stuff, and the hat on Papa Legba looks just like that, and so it's like a continuation in modern clothing of the old, like he's a chthonic realm deity. So like it's, even though he's wearing a suit and tie or whatever, like he's wearing modern clothes, it's still the same symbols. And they sacrifice chickens and stuff. Like it's the same kind of like with
tobacco and all this other kind of ritual implements.
But
I have a show on that guy. I'll try to find the Legba stuff. But
sweet. Like the Jews kill the chickens and do the same type of thing.
Right.
They splatter the
Yeah.
blood around just like what they do in the voodoo. I think it's like the same system of magic, that's just older than both traditions, and it's just flowering out like what Hans was saying, like the Kabbalah is ancient.
Right.
What was that, Papa Legba? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Hill Doggy says Papa Legba sounds like the stuff they were doing in Matamoros, probably similar. Funny thing, Henry Lee Lucas was talking about it 8 years before a U.S. Customs official kid went missing and they busted it. They were doing something similar to African stuff. It's called Palo Mayombe. There's all kinds of iterations and variations of voodoo and African magic, but it all came from Africa,
Right.
spread through Haiti, Cuba, Florida, Matamoros, and then South America. There's just an incredible amount of like African religions that spread all the way through Brazil and all these other places. So
Right. And they had to syncretize it with Christianity.
Christianity, called
So
like the
that-
Owl of God was doing that kind of stuff. He
Yeah.
was mixing it up.
Yeah.
I think I'm done, dude. I'm burnt.
Okay. All right. Hey,
Where can
I
people
appreciate
find
you.
you? Yeah.
Wake the Dead. They onegreatworknetwork.com/Sean-McCann. And my show is Wake the Dead, and I'm all over the place. And I do lots of shows with you, and we've got I've done more shows with you than anybody else, I think, and it's been a
We're
pleasure.
like
every
40 or
time.
something. Likewise. So I'm glad. They've always been interesting. We've covered a lot of great different subjects. Check them out. Rosemary's Baby, Eyes Wide Shut. Eyes Wide Shut is like what's going on with the Epstein files. There's weird stuff happening behind the scenes and all kinds of threats and blackmail. If you remember Eyes Wide Shut, he's basically threatened by these guys after he went to the ritual, right? He's followed around, don't come here anymore. He's intimidated. This is all through the Epstein stuff. So if you think that Eyes Wide Shut is just some kind of like fable that has no application to real world events, you're wrong. And weird deaths, people showing up in weird places, people died around Epstein in weird ways or just flat out disappeared. So,
Right.
it's stuff's real. So
It's like we all see it, but we don't do anything about it. Our eyes are wide shut, right? Like kind of like when Bill gets offered the little girl for as a whore, he just stares, just like, oh, dissociated. Like all of us, like we look at the Epstein files, like, oh, what are we doing? We're not gonna put anybody in jail. Like I lost faith in the system. But anyway, I'm sorry. That's my.
But I
last
think that
half
he had it right. It's the passivity. Like they just decide, let it go, let their kid go in the toy store, and the reality is a big toy store of amenities and stuff like that, and go back and do the deed and keep going. It's crazy. Like we are in some kind of weird hypnocracy, like Hans said. So anyway,
awesome.
thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for the comments, and thank you, Sean, and
Thank you,
everybody have a
William.
great night. And until next time, we have to talk too about what kind of shows we're going to do next. Like now that we
Yes.
have Robert gone, it's like I have ideas. We can talk about it offline. If anybody has any ideas, maybe check out this this Keezy play or something. But I have an outline in my brain, but I'll share it with you, Sean. Anyway,
That's
thanks
great.
everybody for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. And check out William Ramsey